Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Madam President. As I was reading Dan Morse's piece in the Washington Post this morning, the song, the Rascal Flatts song, "God Bless the Long and Winding Road That Led Me Straight to You," kept popping into my head. We are excited that you are here, sir. The first time I had the opportunity to meet you was when we served on a panel together that occurred in downtown Silver Spring shortly after some riots that occurred with youth after a concert. And at the time, there was actual serious consideration being given at the county on instituting a policy of a curfew because of the civic unrest among our youth that particular summer. And you, at that panel, provided what I thought was a master class in how to respectfully and sternly and politely and caringly engage our youth. And I thought you did a phenomenal job that night. I was impressed then, and I've continued to be impressed over the last 12 years as I've gotten to know you. And so I think you are going to do a fantastic job as our next police chief. I do want to start in the youth development space. I totally concur with bringing back important and tried and true programs and services like our Police Athletic League. I think we can go even further than that and work on collaboratively on STEAM-based programming together with our law enforcement because there's a lot of opportunities there. And I want to highlight what I think is a best practice. When we launched Excel Beyond the Bell 10 years ago, we did a training called Advancing Youth Development, and the SROs at the various schools that had EBB sites participated in that training. Mm-hmm. And everybody really acknowledged how powerful that training was and how helpful it was. And so as we look at community policing moving forward and as we look at proactive measures that we can take to better engage our youth, I strongly urge you to look at trainings like that, and create the time and space for our officers to be able to take advantage of those trainings, because we've talked about this extensively and also served on the Positive Youth Development Committee together, and I know you believe this, I know you know how important it is, and I just want to highlight that and confirm that that's a direction you want to take and those are actions that you'd like to pursue.
Oh, absolutely. I think that, and I appreciate those comments, because I think what's most important and sort of the suggestions, because I think that, you know, when we look at a lot of the issues with our youth, you know, I've been involved in a lot of youth development type of programs for quite some time. You know, I've been a part of a mentoring group that I think has had some significant impact in this county, and the reason why I did that, and that was on a volunteer basis, is because I found that to be important to me. Because I think it's important that we make sure that, you know, we can have an ability to reach out to our youth, to show them that we can be good role models, but to also develop relationships with them, and most importantly, to understand them. And so it's vitally important that along the way that we, as the police department, we have a role to play. And as noted earlier, you know, it's not all about just an enforcement mechanism that role that we play. We play another important role in order to prevent and to preserve the peace, but we also, in order to have community relation building, they have to be a part of that. And so the school resource officer program, I think, is vitally important. I fully support expanding it. I think we have some phenomenal school resource officers who are doing, you know, when we look at schools, those schools by themselves are a community within itself. And I tell our officers all the time is you treat it like the school resource officer treats that like it's their beat. You know, that's their responsibility. They own that. And they treat it as such. And even any officer that works in that area, I tell them the same thing, that, you know, it's not just because it's the school resource officer's responsibility, it's also yours. But I fully support us becoming more engaging in the youth development type programs and being engaged in a way that we would be able to effectively do more communications that would be positive.
Great. Having worked in the executive branch, I know how important the relationship is between his or her appointees and the CAO and the county executive. There has to be trust. There has to be strong communication. In light of what's transpired over the last year, I know that there have, I assume, been numerous conversations within the executive branch on how to ensure that there is strong communication. But could you elaborate a little bit on that and talk about how you envision that relationship moving forward?
Sure. I will say this. I give much respect to any elected official and how they have an opportunity to, have a vision for what they want and how they see things that they, as they direct this county. And over the course of my 34 years, I've seen it in many different facets in the way that the politics work. I am of the belief that you have to be able to communicate with those that you work for and those that you work with, right? And I think that it's important, and I see us as having an open dialogue about discussions and me being able to share my thoughts with the county executive and with his team, and to be able to share them in a way and to give my expert opinion on the way I see things, and the way my team, collectively we come together and we bring that vision to them. I think I'll continue to do that. I don't, again, at the end of the day, the county executive makes decisions and directs the work in many different facets. But I will say that I think that the ability of any individual that works for anyone should have the ability to have a voice, and I think Mr. Elrich has given me that voice, and we've had some really good discussions. Not always that we would agreed upon things maybe in the very beginning, but I see us coming around, turning the curve, you might say. So, and I say that for Mr. Klein, it's for his benefit.
That was really good. He's learning. All right. So I'll end with this, and Councilmember Jawando alluded to this, but I want to, as the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee and also a member of the Public Safety Committee, I am very concerned with the mental health issues, particularly as it relates to our first responders. And with the situation happening in New York, I know we've had recent discussions that this is a conversation happening across the nation right now within law enforcement offices. If you could just talk briefly about your plans in this space to ensure we provide maximum wraparound services for our first responders. And as a follow-up, I've discussed this with my colleague Sydney Katz. We are interested in learning more about where some of the gaps are and what more we can do collectively as a community to support our first responders.
Absolutely, and there's no doubt about it. I think over time we really have to understand the impact of this profession. And as noted, someone stated earlier, not only our sworn officers, but also what I consider our professional staff, such as our dispatchers and all, because it can be a very stressful occupation in many ways, more than one way. And I just returned from Major City Chiefs Conference in Chicago, and to hear several other departments, particularly the NYPD, speak of 10 such suicides that they've had in the year of 2019 alone, and how impactful that's been on their agency. And it's going across, and there's we had a couple of panel discussions about this to the degree of what else can we do as police leaders to provide these types of services to our folks, and to not allow them to just simply feel as if they don't have the ability to come forward, and that there won't be these negative impact. There won't be a negative stigma attached to their crying out for help. And that's one thing I'm committed to making sure that we won't do that, that we won't make this a negative stigma against our officers, or their family members, or the other professional staff, that we are providing them with services. We are currently working with OHR in order to be able to provide better communication and information to all of our employees. We are also in the middle of, just beginning, I should say, in the collective bargaining negotiations to talk with the FOP about some of the services that I'm concerned about, is to make sure that no matter where officers live, that there's accessible practitioner help nearby to where they live, so they don't feel as if they have to sort of travel across one end of the county to the next, or that they've got to travel 2 counties over in order to get that. I know that the mental health, profession is somewhat inundated sometimes. I hear people talk about, they try to get appointments and they might not get an appointment for like 2 or 3 months. And to me, that's unacceptable in our world, even though we do have a police psychiatrist that is connected to our department that works out of OHR. And I was just told by OHR that they have hired a second police psychologist. So that's going to tremendously help us. But we're also looking at what are some of the other needs, and we're exploring that. So when we come back, I think in December, we'll have a much more definitive sort of a plan of what that's looking like, what are those services, and what are some of the shortcomings if we can identify such. We'll be more than happy to share that with the council. So thank you.